Welcome to Echoes of Crime, where justice whispers, and sometimes it screams. Subscribe now. He spent 25 years in prison for a murder he didn't commit, framed by the very system meant to protect him. Now the truth is out, and the people who put him there? They're about to fall. This isn't just a story. It's a reckoning. And it's only the beginning. Watch till the end. After 25 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit, Derrick James walked out of prison a free man. But freedom came at a price. This is the story of how the justice system turned a man into a scapegoat, ignored evidence, and buried the truth for over 2 decades. It all started on the night of June 22, 1999 in Edgewood, a small southern town known more for its community picnics and high school football games than violent crime. But that night shattered the peace. Marilyn Carter, a beloved schoolteacher, was found brutally murdered in her home. The scene was chaotic, blood, broken glass, and confusion. But no clear suspect. With fear gripping the town, the police were under pressure. A suspect had to be found. Quickly. Derrick James lived just 4 blocks away. A single father and hard-working mechanic. No criminal record. But he matched a vague description given by a neighbor. Black male about 6 feet tall, wearing a hoodie. That was enough. He was arrested in front of his daughter. Interrogated for 14 hours without food, a phone call, or a lawyer. No confession. No DNA. Just a shaky ID and a town desperate to move on. The trial was swift. A nearly all-white jury. A prosecutor who fed fear. A defense that barely had time to prepare. It was over before it began. Derrick was sentenced to life in prison. His world, gone. But even behind bars, Derrick refused to give up. He educated himself. Wrote letters. Studied the law. Year after year. Rejection after rejection. Then in 2018, a lawyer named Alicia Torres read his case. She found what others missed, or ignored. A DNA sample that had never been tested. It matched a convicted felon from another state. A man who had committed a similar crime. But even that wasn't enough to free Derrick. It took 2 more years of legal battles. But in 2024, Derrick James was finally exonerated. He stepped out of prison not as the man he once was, but as a survivor of a system that failed him. Now he speaks out, for the wrongfully convicted. For the forgotten. For the ones still waiting. But just as Derrick James began to rebuild his life, a new piece of information surfaced. Something buried even deeper than the DNA. A name. A face. And a connection to Marilyn Carter that no one had uncovered before. The name was Andre Kellerman. It came from an anonymous tip, a letter sent to the National Innocence Initiative. No return address. No fingerprints. Just a message typed on cheap printer paper. You freed the wrong man. Look into Kellerman. He knew Marilyn. At first it felt like a cruel joke. A random lead. But Alicia Torres, the lawyer who had worked tirelessly to free Derrick, couldn't ignore it. She started digging. There was no Andre Kellerman in Derrick's original case file. He had never been questioned. Never even mentioned. But then she found something OD. A maintenance log from Marilyn Carter's school. 2 months before her murder, a temporary night custodian was hired for just 3 weeks. His name? Andre Kellerman. Kellerman had a short record. Petty theft. Trespassing. Nothing violent, at least not on paper. But his employment file raised questions. He was let go suddenly. No explanation. No HR memo. Just a handwritten note. Terminated, after incident with staff member. Do not rehire. Alicia contacted the school, but most of the administrators from 1999 had moved on or retired. Records were incomplete. She reached out to Derrick. When he heard the name, he went quiet. That name? I think I heard it once. Marilyn said something about someone creeping around the parking lot. She said it scared her, he recalled. Alicia passed the information to the new district attorney's office, which had already been embarrassed by Derrick's wrongful conviction. They agreed to open a quiet inquiry. Investigators began tracking Kellerman's history. After being fired from the school, he had drifted across state lines, picking up short-term labor jobs under variations of his name. He lived off the grid, no social media, no credit cards. But in 2002, he had been briefly arrested in Georgia for trespassing on a woman's property. The woman had claimed he was stalking her. Charges were dropped. No follow-up. Then something big. In 2003, Kellerman had applied for a job in Louisiana, and the background check listed Edgewood, the town where Marilyn was murdered, as a previous residence. He had used a different name, Andrew Kell. Investigators began to believe Kellerman wasn't just a name, they believed he was the missing piece of the puzzle that no one had cared to find. But where was he now? They found an old address, abandoned. A post office box in another state, closed. Then a lucky break, a welfare application submitted under his alias just 6 months earlier in rural Mississippi. It listed a trailer park address. By the time investigators arrived, the trailer was empty, but inside they found old documents, and something chilling. A yellowed newspaper clipping of Marilyn Carter's obituary. Marked with a red pen. Folded inside the article was a photo of the school where she worked, taken from a distance. This wasn't just a coincidence. This was obsession. The district attorney made a bold move. They issued a warrant for Andre Kellerman's arrest on suspicion of involvement in the 1999 murder. But legally things were complicated. The statute of limitations on evidence tampering was long gone. Without a confession, the DA knew it would take more than circumstantial ties to reopen the case in court. Still, the warrant allowed them to circulate his photo and alert federal agencies. Meanwhile, Derrick was struggling with his own freedom. He had moved in with his sister. Started therapy. He was speaking publicly, but privately he felt stuck between the past and a future he didn't recognize. He kept thinking about the tip. About Kellerman. About Marilyn. And about that night. What if I'd just taken another route home that day? What if I hadn't worn that damn hoodie? He wondered. One morning Alicia received a voicemail. No caller ID. Just a deep, raspy voice. You're getting too close. Let it go. Or it won't end well, for either of you. The audio was sent to the FBI. They couldn't confirm the voice, but the threat was clear. Derrick was urged to stay with family and limit public appearances. He agreed, but reluctantly. He wasn't afraid. He was angry. They took 25 years from me. I'm not hiding now, he said. It was a male profile. A partial match, to the same felon whose DNA had been found on the murder weapon. But the twist. That man had a half-brother. His name? Andre Kellerman. An envelope arrived. No note. Just a torn piece of hoodie fabric, stained with blood. The blood wasn't Marilyn Carter's. And it wasn't Derrick James either. DNA testing revealed something even more disturbing. It matched the same felon whose DNA was found on the murder weapon. But this sample wasn't from him, it was from his half-brother. His name? Andre Kellerman. The discovery stunned the legal team. For the first time, they had a direct biological link between the man they believed committed the crime and the mysterious figure who'd vanished for over 2 decades. Andre Kellerman wasn't just a former custodian with a shady past. He was part of a bloodline that seemed cursed by violence and secrecy. But there was still a problem. While the DNA suggested a connection, it wasn't enough to prove guilt in court. What they needed now was motive. And a witness. Someone who could place Kellerman near Marilyn Carter, not just as a passing employee, but as someone with reason to harm her. Derrick James had never heard of the half-brother either. But when Alicia Torres showed him the forensic profile side by side with the weapon DNA, he leaned back in silence. So, the truth was in their blood. All along, he whispered. That night, Derrick couldn't sleep. He looked through the few possessions returned to him from prison. One stood out, a letter his daughter had written him as a child. She'd drawn a picture of their old neighborhood. His house, the mechanic's shop, and next door, Marilyn Carter's place. He hadn't lived next door to Marilyn, but the drawing reminded him of something. Marilyn had once babysat for a neighbor's child. A young boy, quiet, strange. The neighbor's name? Cheryl. Alicia tracked down Cheryl Simmons, now living 2 towns over. She agreed to speak, but only off the record. Cheryl remembered Marilyn. They'd grown up together. She also remembered Andre, her nephew. That's when it clicked. Andre Kellerman wasn't just a former custodian. He had a direct family link to the neighborhood. Cheryl's brother had been in and out of prison. Andre had stayed with her briefly after his mother died. And during that time, he became fixated on Marilyn Carter. He was obsessed with her, Cheryl admitted. He thought she looked down on him, always corrected him, treated him like a child. But she didn't mean anything by it. Marilyn was just kind. Then one day she told me she didn't want him coming around anymore. Said he made her uncomfortable. That was 2 weeks before she died. Cheryl's statement was damning, but she refused to testify. She didn't want to reopen old wounds or bring trouble into her life. Still, it was the first clear motive investigators had: rejection. Kellerman had a pattern: short-term jobs, sudden outbursts, stalking behavior. When Marilyn rebuffed him, he snapped. But even with that motive, they still needed to find him. The last trace was that abandoned trailer. Then, another break. A wildlife camera in rural Alabama, part of a poaching surveillance system, captured a blurry image of a man walking near an old storage shed. He looked disoriented, carried a duffel bag. Local rangers didn't think much of it, until the FBI matched it to an old mugshot of Kellerman. He was alive, and he was running. A multi-state manhunt quietly began. Authorities didn't want the media involved. They feared it would spook him. Meanwhile, Alicia and Derrick worked with a documentary team to begin recording his story, what he lost, what he learned, and what still haunted him. During a quiet afternoon of filming, Derrick paused the interview. He looked into the camera and said, "If you're watching this and you know something, say something. Don't let this man hide behind my pain." The clip went viral. 2 days later, an anonymous caller rang the tip line. "He's in Georgia, working under a fake name. I saw him 3 days ago. He's using the name Cal Jennings, working construction off Route 17. Agents moved quickly. They found the site, questioned workers, and finally, confirmed that Cal Jennings was indeed Andre Kellerman. But by the time they arrived, he was gone. Left behind was a wallet. Inside it, something chilling. A photo of Marilyn Carter. The same photo from her school ID badge. One, creased, like it had been touched 1,000 times. On the back, written in smeared pen, "She should have listened." Derrick was devastated. After everything, the man who stole 25 years from him was still out there. Still breathing free air. Still unpunished. But Alicia was more determined than ever. She pushed the DA to file charges based on Cheryl's testimony, even without her cooperation. Then something unexpected happened. Cheryl Simmons came forward. She agreed to testify, on one condition: that her identity be protected from the public. She revealed that on the night of the murder, Andre came back to her house, barefoot and shaking. He had scratches on his face, blood on his shirt. He told her, "I handled it. She won't laugh at me anymore." She had kept that secret for 25 years. The DA officially reopened the case, this time with a new name on the docket. But just as an arrest warrant was about to be issued, they received a fax. No name. No signature. Just 6 chilling words: "Too late. He's already with her." That night, in a forest clearing 30 miles outside Savannah, officers found a shallow grave. Inside, a duffel bag, clothes, a driver's license, and a body decomposed beyond recognition. Dental records are still pending. But the scar on the left hand? A match for Kellerman. A shallow grave. A decomposed body. A scar on the left hand. It looked like the end of the chase. Andre Kellerman was dead. But justice doesn't rest on bodies. It rests on truth. And dead men can't confess. Dental records confirmed it. The remains were indeed Andre Kellerman. The man who had haunted Derrick James' life, the man whose shadow hovered over Marilyn Carter's murder, was finally gone. But just as investigators exhaled, Alicia Torres made a troubling observation. "There's no closure in this. Just more questions," she said. "He didn't confess. He never stood trial. And now we'll never hear his side." And for Derrick, that was the hardest part. He would never hear Kellerman say the words, "I did it." No public reckoning. No courtroom truth. Just a grave and silence. The district attorney, pressured by media and public opinion, held a press conference. The statement was brief. "With the death of Mr. Kellerman, we consider the investigation closed. No further suspects are being pursued at this time." Derrick watched it from home, jaw clenched. After 25 years of waiting, that was it? A case closed stamp. But Alicia wasn't done. She requested the full autopsy report and forensic results from the grave site. Something about it didn't sit right with her. The report arrived 2 weeks later. There were no defensive wounds on the body, no signs of a struggle. But there was something odd, traces of a chemical compound found in the shallow grave soil. Chloral hydrate. A sedative. It raised a disturbing possibility. What if Kellerman didn't bury himself? What if someone helped him disappear? Or worse, silenced him before he could talk? The case, once closed, cracked open again. While media headlines shouted, "Killer found dead," behind the scenes, federal investigators joined Alicia in combing Kellerman's last known connections. They found a burner phone, traced to a single number used just twice in 3 months. Once to a payphone near a motel in Augusta. Once to an encrypted satellite phone. The number belonged to a private security contractor, retired. His name? Matthew Voss, former Marine. And the man once hired by the prosecutor's office as an independent investigator in the original 1999 trial. The connection seemed distant, until Derrick saw the name. Voss? He was in the courtroom. I remember the badge. He wasn't a cop, but they treated him like one. Voss had testified briefly during Derrick's trial. He claimed he helped locate community leads about Derrick's whereabouts during the night of the murder. But those leads? They were never disclosed, never followed up. And now, 25 years later, his number was tied to Kellerman's burner. Alicia requested a subpoena for Voss's records. What she found sent chills down her spine. Over a dozen wire transfers in the past 6 months. All from shell corporations connected to a single legal firm in Georgia. The same firm that defended Edgewood's police department in a 2011 civil rights lawsuit. Someone was paying Voss. And whatever Kellerman was about to reveal, it scared them enough to act. Meanwhile, Derrick tried to rebuild what remained of his life. He got his first apartment. Started volunteering. Spoke at rallies. But the pain never left. He still woke up some nights expecting to hear cell doors slam. And worst of all, people still whispered, he was released, but that doesn't mean he was innocent. The stain was permanent. Until a voicemail changed everything. It was left on Alicia's phone, digitally scrambled. But the message was clear. You digging too deep. Kellerman was a pawn. There's her. Think days vice. Think campaign money. Stop before someone gets hurt. The FBI traced the call, but it was routed through 6 international servers. A dead end. But Alicia had already begun mapping connections between the DA in 1999, the lead detective, and the law firm that once represented the town's interests. A triangle of silence. And right in the center? A missing file from the original police archives labeled, Property, Carter House. Derrick remembered the night Marilyn died, the rumors of a missing diary. A ledger. Something the police never turned over to the defense. Now, Alicia believed it wasn't just a random murder. It might have been tied to something bigger. Something Marilyn Carter saw. Or wrote down. Why else would so many people work so hard to cover up what happened? With federal eyes finally on Edgewood, new witnesses stepped forward. A former clerk admitted she saw boxes being removed from the evidence room in 2001. Another retired officer confessed he'd been told, some things aren't meant to be solved. Bit by bit, the puzzle was revealing more than a wrongful conviction. It was exposing a town built on secrets. And Marilyn Carter? She may have been more than a victim. She may have been the whistleblower. Then an anonymous delivery arrived at Alicia's office. Inside, a stained diary. Handwriting faded but legible. The name Marilyn Carter, etched on the inside cover. The last entry read, if anything happens to me, look to the names I wrote down. They're not who they pretend to be. A list followed. 3 names. One of them was the prosecutor who put Derrick James away. 3 names. 1 diary. 1 dead woman. Marilyn Carter had been silenced. But her words had just started speaking. The pages were fragile, browned with age. The ink smeared in places. But Alicia Torres held them like sacred scripture. Each name was written carefully, deliberately, in all caps. And right below them, a chilling sentence, they think I don't know what they did. The first name was Paul K. Wallace, the lead prosecutor on Derrick's 1999 case. The second, David R. Morton, then a city councilman, now a powerful state senator. The third was unreadable, torn, water-damaged. Half a name, half a clue. But even 2 full names were enough. Wallace had long retired, living quietly in a lakeside cabin upstate. Morton was very much in the spotlight, spearheading reforms, shaking hands in campaign ads. The kind of man who built a career on cleaning up crime. Alicia cross-referenced dates in the diary with town records. What she found stunned her. In the months before Marilyn's murder, she had been overseeing school budget reports. There were anomalies, disbursements that didn't add up. Grants that were approved but never received by the school. One grant, $250,000, was supposed to fund a new literacy program. Instead it vanished, traced to a now-defunct charity connected to Councilman Morton's office. Marilyn had flagged it. She had raised concerns. And she had written it all down. Derrick sat quietly as Alicia laid the evidence before him. "You're telling me she died not just because she was in the wrong place but because she knew too much?" "It's bigger than your case, Derrick," she said. "You were collateral damage." They needed a quick conviction to end the story before anyone looked deeper. They now had motive, a paper trail, and a corrupt inner circle. But they still had no way to prove that Kellerman had been used to silence Marilyn, or that someone else helped set Derrick up. That is, until a photo surfaced. An old reporter from Edgewood Weekly came forward. He'd been cleaning out storage when he found undeveloped rolls of film from the summer of 1999. One image stood out. Taken during a town fundraiser just 2 weeks before the murder, it showed Marilyn Carter shaking hands with Paul Wallace and David Morton. Standing just behind them, in plain view, was Andre Kellerman, wearing a catering uniform. His face was partially obscured, but when enhanced by forensic analysts, it was unmistakable. Andre Kellerman hadn't just killed Marilyn. He had access to her. He worked events she attended. He was inside the building that night, legally. And someone made sure that connection disappeared before trial. The picture went public. News outlets picked it up. Headlines changed overnight. New photo links convicted killer to prosecutor's office. Innocent man's trial under new scrutiny amid corruption allegations. Morton's office issued a statement denying all allegations. Paul Wallace refused interviews entirely. But behind the scenes, subpoenas began flying. An internal investigation was opened. And just when things started closing in, another name emerged. A tipster emailed Alicia. The message was short. "Check the building permits from 1999. Marilyn's house." She complained about gas lines. She said someone had been inside without her knowledge. Alicia dug through public records. And sure enough, 1 week before Marilyn's death, a utility company filed a maintenance report on her street. Only it wasn't a licensed company. It was a subcontractor. One that no longer existed. Owned by a shell corporation. Registered under a false name. The name used to register the company belonged to a man who died in 1997. A ghost business, a false entry, a perfect cover. Derrick sat with the diary in his lap. He traced Marilyn's handwriting with his fingertips. "She was trying to tell someone," he said quietly. "They just didn't listen." Alicia nodded. "They will now." But just as the pieces were falling into place, the unthinkable happened. Alicia's office was broken into. Her files were left scattered, hard drives missing. The diary was gone. But whoever did it made a mistake. They didn't touch her off-site backup. Still, the message was clear. Someone out there still had something to lose. And then another body turned up. A retired detective. One who worked Marilyn's case. Found in his garage. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Ruled a suicide. But his daughter didn't buy it. She said he'd been nervous for days. Said he wanted to talk to someone. Said he was finally ready. Whatever he knew, he took it to the grave. Or someone made sure of that. The detective's death was ruled a suicide. But everyone close to him knew the truth. He was silenced. Detective Harold Mays had spent 30 years with the Edgewood Police Department. He wasn't perfect, but he had a reputation. Fair, thorough, quiet. He was also the original officer who responded to the scene at Marilyn Carter's house in 1999. Back then, his report had been one of the few to raise questions. "Signs of forced entry," he wrote. "Victim may have known the suspect. Suggest full forensic sweep of weapon and entry points." But that part of the report never made it into the trial file. It was buried, rewritten, replaced with language that pointed the finger squarely at Derrick. Now, 25 years later, Harold was ready to talk. According to his daughter, he had boxes, old case notes, photos, and recordings he never turned in. Insurance, he'd called it. In case the truth ever needed to be told. But when Alicia and Derrick arrived at his home the day after the funeral, the house had already been ransacked. The boxes were gone. The garage had been scrubbed clean. Almost. Behind a loose panel in his attic, they found one tape. A cassette. Labeled only, Carter Case, July 3, 99, confidential. They didn't have a cassette player. Alicia had to borrow one from a college archive lab. When they finally played it, what they heard changed everything. "This is Mays," the voice crackled. "July 3rd. This is off the books. They're pushing for a fast arrest. It's politics now, not justice." He paused. "There's someone they don't want me to talk to. Marilyn left a note. Said she was scared. Said she'd been followed. Mentioned names, Morton, Wallace, and someone called the Fixer. She said she was going to give it all to the press. That was 3 days before she was killed. The Fixer. A ghost name. No records. No address. Just a title whispered in a dead woman's diary and a long-buried tape." Alicia dug deeper into local rumors, court archives, campaign finance records. A name finally surfaced: Caleb Shaw. A former private contractor with ties to political campaigns and state law enforcement. He wasn't listed on payrolls, but his shell companies were. He had no public profile, but whispers tied him to problem-solving across 3 counties: witness intimidation, record disappearances, and untraceable favors. And in 1999 he was briefly contracted by the city as an infrastructure consultant. Meanwhile, Derrick was offered a settlement. Quiet money. A state payout for wrongful conviction. But it came with conditions: no further legal action. No more digging. No more names. He refused. "I didn't lose 25 years of my life just to go silent now," he said. "Someone killed Marilyn. Someone framed me. And someone still thinks they got away with it." But the deeper they looked, the more dangerous it became. One night, Alicia returned to her car to find her tires slashed and a note tucked under the wiper. "You got him out. Don't make us put you in." The case began attracting national attention. Media outlets. Activists. Politicians on both sides of the aisle. One name kept appearing on anonymous tip lines: Caleb Shaw. But Shaw had vanished. No current address. No known relatives. His business licenses expired. His online footprint erased. It was like he never existed. Until he made contact. An email. "You're getting close. Meet me alone." No cops. No media. Saturday. 11 p.m., Grayson Quarry. It wasn't signed. But attached was a scanned copy of Marilyn Carter's original letter, the one she had written the night before she died. It had never been recovered. Now it had. The handwriting matched. The ink was smudged with what looked like blood. And at the bottom, one final sentence: "If anything happens to me, start with Caleb Shaw." Alicia was ready to go. Derrick stopped her. "It's a trap," he said. "Maybe," she replied. "But if it's not, it's the closest we've ever been to the truth." Saturday came. 11 p.m. Grayson Quarry was cold, abandoned, silent. Alicia stood under the broken floodlight. Wind howled through rusted steel beams. And then, footsteps. A shadow emerged from the trees. Tall. Face hidden beneath a hood. "You shouldn't have come alone," the voice rasped. "Then why did you ask me to?" Alicia said, holding her ground. The figure reached into his coat and pulled out a flash drive. "Everything you're looking for is on this," he said. "But be careful. You think you're chasing a killer. You're chasing a machine." "What kind of machine?" Alicia asked. He turned, paused. "The kind that buries bodies and builds careers on top of them." He disappeared into the darkness before she could say another word. Back at her office, she inserted the drive. What she saw on the screen made her gasp. The flash drive was less than a gigabyte. But inside, it held a bomb. A digital time capsule of corruption, cover-ups, and a plan that started long before Derrick James ever heard Marilyn Carter's name. Alicia stared at the files. Dozens of them. Encrypted folders. Password-protected PDFs, scan memos, audio files, surveillance images, and one labeled simply, Carter_file.vault. The video opened with grainy footage. A basement, concrete walls, low light. A group of men around a table. One of them was clearly Caleb Shaw. Another, State Prosecutor Douglas Warren. The same man who had led the case against Derrick. The date in the corner, June 19, 1999. 3 days before Marilyn Carter was murdered. "She's gonna talk," one man says. "She's bluffing," replies another. She's not. She's got names, records, and that little journalist friend of hers. We need to shut it down. How? What we always do. Play. Quick. Someone takes the fall. Preferably someone no one's gonna believe. They all nod. Caleb lights a cigarette. I know just the guy. The room erupts in static. The clip ends. Alicia sat back stunned. The conspiracy wasn't just real, it was documented. A coordinated effort to silence a whistleblower and frame an innocent man. Other files named names. Officers, judges, even a state senator. It wasn't just about Marilyn Carter. It was about real estate deals, bribes, a pay-to-play network that funded political campaigns and funneled kickbacks through shell companies. And Derrick James? He had been collateral damage. She downloaded everything, printed hard copies, backed it up 3 times. But she wasn't fast enough. That night, her office was broken into. Not a laptop stolen. Not a dollar taken. Just the flash drive and the printed files. Luckily, Alicia had mailed one backup copy to a trusted reporter in Atlanta. Michelle Reese, a Pulitzer-winning journalist known for exposing political corruption. The next day Michelle called. Her voice was shaking. I'm out, she said. I can't do this story. I have a family. I just can't. What happened? Alicia asked. They came to my house. Who? They didn't leave a name. That same day, Derrick received a notice in the mail. The settlement offer had been revoked. The state claimed procedural errors in his release. In other words, they wanted him back inside. It's not just revenge, Alicia said. It's cleanup. They were running out of time. If they were going to bring the truth to light, they needed help and protection. They went to the one place they never thought they would, the FBI. 2 weeks later, Alicia was called into a secure federal office. She was met by Special Agent Claire Benton. Smart. No nonsense. Known for her work on organized corruption in law enforcement. We've been watching Shaw for years, Benton said. But no one would testify. Until now. She agreed to launch an internal investigation. But warned them. If you push this, there's no going back. These men don't play by the rules. And they've gotten away with worse. Meanwhile, Derrick returned to the house he once called home. The neighborhood had changed. His old garage was gone. Replaced by a gas station. He walked down the street, past the old high school where his daughter once dreamed of college. A few kids stared at him. That's the guy from the news, one whispered. He's the one they locked up for nothing. That night Derrick got a call. Blocked number. The voice on the other end was cold, familiar. You should have taken the money. Who is this? Let it go, James. Before we bury something else. Derrick didn't sleep that night. He stared at the ceiling, remembering every day in that cell. Every moment of silence. Every second stolen from him. He wasn't afraid. He was done being afraid. The next morning, he stood in front of the courthouse. Reporters. Microphones. Alicia beside him. He held up a copy of the video stills. The table of conspirators. The plan to frame him. My name is Derrick James, he said. And this time I will not be silenced. But across town in a dimly lit apartment, Caleb Shaw watched the broadcast. He didn't flinch. He didn't panic. He picked up his phone and made a single call. It's time. Burn the files. Then he opened his laptop and pressed send. Across the state, dozens of officials received an encrypted message. Operation Clean Slate, Code Black. Initiate. Everything was about to change. And Derrick James was standing in the crosshairs. Operation Clean Slate had been activated. And Derrick James had just declared war on the very system that stole his life. But this time he wasn't alone. The encrypted messages sent by Caleb Shaw triggered a chain of cover-ups. Hard drives were wiped. Paper trails burned. 2 assistant prosecutors resigned within 24 hours. 1 fled the country. But the FBI was ready. Special Agent Claire Benton launched simultaneous raids in 3 counties. At dawn, federal agents stormed a private law firm, a retired judge's estate, and a city storage facility containing evidence files buried for decades. Inside the warehouse, boxes labeled Edgewood Cold Cases. In them they found fingerprints, photos, audio tapes, and an original unedited police interview with Derrick James, one that showed over an hour of threats and coercion, never seen by the court. Across town, Alicia Torres filed a motion to present the new evidence to a federal grand jury. Within 72 hours, indictments were issued. Caleb Shaw was arrested in a downtown hotel, attempting to delete his cloud backups. Prosecutor Douglas Warren was taken into custody at his lake house. His wife answered the door, sobbing. "I told him the past would catch up." The news hit national media like wildfire. Wrongful conviction blows open 25-year cover-up. Whistleblower files lead to major political arrests. One man's fight for justice changes the game. At a televised hearing, Alicia stood beside Derrick as the Attorney General made a public apology. "We failed. We failed Derrick James, his family, and the people of this state. But today we begin the process of righting that wrong." Derrick didn't speak. Not yet. He was saving his words. Caleb Shaw tried to take a plea deal, 20 years in exchange for testimony. But the FBI had more than enough evidence. The judge denied the deal. Trial was set for early spring. In the courtroom, Derrick sat across from the man who had orchestrated his downfall. No shackles. No fear. Just clarity. One by one, witnesses testified. Experts confirmed the tampered evidence. A former officer admitted to planting items at Derrick's home. Another testified that Caleb boasted about cleaning up the Carter situation. The final blow came from a retired clerk who had saved a photocopy of the original DNA report, the one that could have freed Derrick 2 decades earlier. It matched the real killer, Victor Hines, a drifter with a violent record, and a known associate of Shaw. On the final day of trial, Caleb Shaw took the stand. He admitted it all. The meeting. The setup. The false witness. "We thought we could control the fallout," he said. "We were wrong." The jury took less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Caleb Shaw was sentenced to life in federal prison without parole. Douglas Warren received 35 years. 5 officers, 2 former judges, and a city councilman were also convicted. But for Derrick, justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about healing. He returned to the same courthouse where his life had been stolen 25 years earlier. This time not as a defendant, but as a guest of honor. A new mural was unveiled in Edgewood City Square, a painting of Derrick's face beneath the words, "Truth finds a way." He was awarded a $12.5 million settlement, but chose to invest half of it into a legal foundation that now bears his name, the James Justice Project. Its mission, to investigate wrongful convictions and support prison reform. Alicia became its director. His daughter, now a lawyer herself, became its first staff attorney. And Derrick? He speaks around the world, colleges, conferences, courthouses. He tells people that justice isn't guaranteed, that the system is only as strong as those willing to fight for what's right, and that silence can be deadly, but the truth will always rise. On the anniversary of his release, Derrick returned to Marilyn Carter's grave. He placed a single rose on the stone. No anger. No bitterness. Just peace. "I forgive you," he whispered. "But I won't forget. Justice delayed is still justice." Subscribe for more true crime videos.